and getting ready to get in the pool and just scrolling and seeing a picture of her and what Nate wrote. And then I just, I'm, I was told that I collapsed to my knees. I don't remember a lot of it. And I remember saying she's dead. And my friends were like, who? What? And then I just said, Leanne.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to True Crime Unsolved. I'm Miles Reef. I'm here as always with my buddy Sean Cahill. This is the place where we tackle the stories that the TV networks won't touch. Unsolved homicides, missing persons cases, stories without an ending. Sean, what are we getting into today?
Hey, Miles. So today we are continuing our coverage of the Leanne Beck death case. We're going to be interviewing two of her very close friends, Kristen and Jesse. These ladies were awesome. We worked with them a lot, putting all these episodes together, and they have such a level of insight into Leanne's life, both before and during her sort of tumultuous relationship with Jason Beck, who was her husband, the father of one of her children, and was the only other person present the night that she died. So, one thing I want to talk about before we get into this interview is really quickly just touching on last week's case breakdown. So, was a really interesting one for Miles and I because we got like upwards of 40 gigabytes of case material for the investigation into Leanne Beck's death. That's a lot of body cam footage, crime scene photos, documents from the medical examiner, police report, just a ton of stuff. And we wanted to really take advantage of that. And you'll even see in this interview that Leanne's friends were hoping we would show some of the photographs of her injuries, of the scene, of things that can sort of put her death into context, right? The things that make you wonder, okay, do we really know everything about this? Was this really an accident? Or is there more here to uncover? Because when you do look at these photos and you see the body cam footage of the first responders, it's um it's really dramatic and it's pretty staggering and there's a lot of information there that does make you kind of scratch your head. So we went full bore, right? We put a lot of that stuff in, and as a result, YouTube flagged us with a sort of like a graphic image. What would you call it? Like a warning. Basically, they
It's like a restriction on promotion, right? So you
yeah.
basically it stops our video from being promoted. It cuts it out of the algorithm because it's deemed like potentially offensive or shocking or whatever you want to call it. But I think it is really important to stress that we felt that it was important to include that stuff, as Sean said, because it's one thing to hear us say it. It's another thing to hear the friends say it, but it's a whole other thing to actually see it. And I think, being informed and having all the information is the only way that anyone's going to be able to have an educated opinion on this case. And that's why we felt it was important to include that stuff. It wasn't from an angle of like trying to exploit the situation or be sensational or anything like that. Quite the opposite. Sean and I actually like went out of the way to blur stuff, and we did everything we could to try and make it sort of palpable, but also get the information to you guys so you could see it, and so you could understand what we were talking about in that case breakdown. But unfortunately, the algorithm in YouTube did not like it.
So we toyed with a couple solutions, like do we strip all of the that imagery out of there and put up a PG version? And ultimately we decided not to do that because we were already getting some traction from enough of you on that video and a lot of comments and a lot of engagement. And we knew that we had these interviews coming up, not only with Kristen and Jesse, but also with some other friends next week, that we said, let's just stay the course because we think people should see this. I think it's important in understanding Leanne's story that this stuff remains in the episode. So what I'd ask you guys is if you haven't seen the case breakdown and you're game and you want to know more, go check it out. We're going to put a link in the description on this video. Even if you do that after you watch this interview, and you'll hear what these ladies have to say, and you want to go see Miles and I's kind of nutshell version, I think it's really worth watching.
Sean and I are still relatively new in this game, right? We've been doing this for what now, 7 months, something like that. So we're learning how YouTube works. We're learning how the censorship on here works, sort of staying within the lines. We're obviously dealing with some really controversial stuff, and we're trying to figure that out. So, yeah, like Sean said, go back and watch it. Help
Yeah.
boost it organically because it's the only way anyone else is going to see it right now.
And again, like just to be clear, it's not because there's super graphic stuff. I mean, we were very conservative with what we showed, but it's more the context of what's on the body cam footage specifically. The reaction of the first responders to the scene of Leanne's death versus what the official story is about what might have happened to her. There's a misalignment there that you have to see, in my opinion, and in Miles's too, with your own two eyes. So that being said, not to distract from the video we're about to show you, this interview is awesome. These two were amazing. Kristen and Jesse really, really loved Leanne, and they had such an incredible insight into her life and her mindset. Like I said before, her earlier relationships, her children, her relationship with Jason that was troubled, and just everything that was going on. And I think we've both found that, talking to people's close friends is one of the best ways to access sort of their state of mind, in these cases, because you tell your friends things you don't tell anybody else, even your parents, right? Sometimes even your priest or the other people in your life that maybe you're kind of confessing or telling things to, your friends kind of know it all. And so that's what you're going to see in this episode. I think it's going to give everybody a really good peek into Leanne's life leading up to what happened to her.
Let's get into it. So, Jesse and Kristen, thank you so much for jumping on with us. I know that it's taken some wrangling to get us all in one place at one time. And you guys are obviously super busy, so we really, really appreciate you coming on to talk to us. What is the best place to start? I think the best place to start is each of you kind of taking your turn and telling us how you knew Leanne. And let's start with that. Let's start with your connection to her and how you guys came to all be friends.
Okay.
I think Jessie first because she knew her first.
Okay. Um, I grew up in Virginia Beach area. Leanne moved there around fourth grade, third, fourth grade. Um, our neighborhoods backed up to each other, so it was constant kids riding bikes in between the neighborhoods together. And one day we met and started riding bikes through the neighborhoods with each other and just formed a bond. And we were together almost every day until she moved away, which was probably about 3 years, I want to say she was there. Um, but in those 3 years, we became very close. Our neighborhood, our houses were very close to each other, so we were constantly either going to her house or mine or the beach, or her neighborhood had a pool, so that's where we spent most of the summer. And then she moved away and we stayed in contact. She came up for my graduation, my wedding, just to visit. And just stayed in touch all those years.
A true lifelong friend, basically.
Yep.
There.
So since elementary school up until her passing, we stayed in touch and very close with each other.
Got it. And Kristen, what about you?
We met in, I think it was February of 2012. I had just moved to North Platte, Nebraska. Kind of most people don't know where it is. It's one of those, if you're going to Denver from Omaha, it's like a little tiny place. You might stop to go to the bathroom or get gas.
I may have done that actually. I've made that drive before. I probably.
Yeah.
Perhaps take a hike on a national monument for no reason.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
maybe on Scotts Bluff and just take a little detour there. We met. I had moved here from Nashville and into this little crappy duplex because it's slim pickings here to find a decent place to live. Um, and I lived there for a couple of weeks, and then she had moved into the other side. It was vacant. And kind of she moved here for nursing. She got a job here. Sorry, I forgot that part. She was a nurse, and at the time she had was engaged to somebody else. Um, and that's how we met. We met as neighbors, and basically we hung out every day. Our houses connected. We just were always with each other. And my son at the time, he was, she was probably like 4. And then he met her fiance at the time before they got married. And he was just like attached. He's like, these are my people, these are my best friends. And so from there on, it was just every day we'd go out of town because the closest Target was like an hour and a half away, and Olive Garden, like normal places for us. So yeah, we just take little road trips or we go get our nails done, and it was kind of like that until she left. She only lasted a year, and here I am, still here. Supposed to only live here a year, but things happen. Um, so yeah, but even after she left, and even though it was just a year that she lived here, we still visited each other. She would meet me in Denver, and like she'd go snowboarding or something, and I'd meet her. And when my daughter was born, she came down here and stayed with me. She was just that kind of friend. Like no matter what, she would come, like Jesse said, for her wedding. Like she'd go out there. Like that's who she was. So yeah, like we still, all those years, still kept in touch. Like there was never any missing a beat just because you're that far away.
Which says a lot, I think, because it's the easiest thing in the world to be like, oh man, I can't make the trip this year, or, I'm a little
Right.
busy, I can't travel, I've got work. And like we do that to each other all the time in adult life. So when someone actually goes out of their way to show up, it really sticks out.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you guys have similar experiences friendship wise, except different time periods where you met, but sort of the same thing, that
Mhm.
they actually being around each other lasted a certain amount of time, and then the friendship continued after that, despite the fact that there was a geographic distance between you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that says a lot about Leanne, like Sean said.
She
Um,
was Leanne was a only child, so her friends were like sisters. We very, very close. I mean, I still talk to her mom to this day, and she calls me her daughter, and same with my mom and Leanne, and so.
Wow.
so I'm going to ask a very broad question, but who was Leanne? What kind of person was she? Who was she in your experience?
Leanne was the type of person who, and I said this before, when she loved you, you felt it. She had never met my girls, unfortunately, and feel like they knew who she is. They wrote her notes, and they never even met her. And in the notes, no, I love you. Um, so she left hard. And I mean, just the fact that she stayed in touch with us and still being so far away, it never felt like Kristen said, you skipped anything. It was never like, oh, I haven't seen you in 3 years. What's new? You always knew pretty much what was going on until, you know, towards the end. But she was very outgoing. She was always laughing and smiling and making you laugh and smile. Just it was always a good time with her. She was just very genuine and very sweet and fun to be around.
I think I can describe her as she was super dependable. You could count on her to be there for you always, no matter what, even far away, even if it's just a text message. She was super kind and compassionate. I mean, her line of work itself spoke volumes. She cared. I'm such a baby. I'm gonna cry. I always cry when I talk about her. Um,
Understandable.
she was like a mothering type person, even when she wasn't even a mom. um, I don't. She really truly had like a heart of gold,
Hmm.
and I mean, she was sassy as all get out in hell, and she, she wouldn't take any shit either at the same time, which always it just throws me for a loop knowing what happened, because that just wasn't her. But you can only take so much before you get broken down. But she was fire at the same time. She was beautiful. She's just I it's so hard to describe her in just a few words. I mean, but she was just compassionate. She was a wonderful mom, and she was a good person. She truly was. She was
I think you guys
wonderful.
did a pretty good job of describing her, actually. I feel like I'm getting a clear picture.
Yeah. I mean, it's obvious just from the impact. It just so many people have wanted to speak to us, which is, I mean, we literally had to divide you guys into groups because there
Yeah,
were there were too many interviews.
she clearly made an impact
So
on a lot of
I
folks.
think that, speaks volumes. So she moves from where you are. I'm assuming that's before any of this, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And where does she end up?
She went back to Arizona. Um, and she got married to that husband. I mean, his name is, I can say his name probably. She got married to Randy. Um, things didn't work
Randy
out.
is her first child's father, right?
No.
No, Randy was her first husband. They never had any
Oh,
children.
copy that.
Um, but they were married. I'm not sure. Were they married maybe like a year or two?
Um, yeah, a year or two, I think. It
Uh,
wasn't too long, but it wasn't too short.
right. And things just didn't work out with him. I mean, Randy was a good guy. It just,
They were
they,
very young
yeah,
when they
super
got married,
young.
very young.
Didn't work out. I think we all really liked Randy, and I didn't have any issues with Randy. He was a good guy.
Yeah, I never had
Um,
any issues. He actually came up and visited us in New York with her one time, and we got along great.
yeah,
They were very happy together.
So it wasn't like this was just some horrible situation that she was repeating. Like
no,
this was a normal relationship that
No.
had a
yeah,
normal
And
conclusion.
she was in her 20s, I'm assuming, when she was with
yeah,
Randy.
mid-20s.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
just so normal, really, from what it sounds like.
Yeah,
You don't
mhm,
usually stay with the people in your 20s forever. Some of us do, but a lot of
right,
times you don't.
yeah,
Right.
and
Mhm.
just didn't work out for him. So that happened, and then she had met her daughter's father, Nate. They were together for quite a long time, and then things started, unraveling between the two. Pretty shortly after she got pregnant, I believe, they tried to kind of work things out, and it just wasn't working through pretty much most of the pregnancy. Um, I remember her calling me when she found out she was pregnant, and she was freaking out. But she was so excited at the same time because she's always wanted to be a mom. And then I was freaking out with her because I'm like, oh my gosh, it's finally happening. Like, what are you gonna do? Hopefully it's a girl. And I remember exactly where I was and everything. Um,
By the time that she had her child with
mhm.
Nate, they were separated, right?
They were
Yes.
separated.
Okay, so they're married. She gets pregnant. She's working as a nurse at this point. They're in Arizona.
She's
She
been in
gets
it.
pregnant, and things don't work out during the pregnancy. They split up. She has the child.
Mhm.
Um, okay, and then so what happens like soon after that?
So Aurora was born in May. Leanne informed me towards the end of June, beginning of July, that she was dating Jason.
So she has the child in May,
Hmm.
and in July
Yes.
she's dating this guy Jason.
Hmm.
Yeah, so she has her daughter in May, and then she announces on social media to everybody in July that she's dating Jason, this new
Got it.
guy.
Got it. With a three month old and in postpartum probably at that.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Yes, very fast. Yep.
Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then on July 17th, she sent me a text message saying, "Oh my gosh, we're at Jared right now. He's buying me a ring." And I'm like, "What?" Okay, I love you and I support you, but what? That's a lot. Um, and then she told me, they're going to Mexico and that she thinks he's going to ask then. And then what was it? The 26th is when he asked, July 26th.
Hmm. Yeah. They
Wow.
got
So it was
engaged July 26th.
Within the
Yeah.
same month of the announcement that they
Yeah.
were even seeing each other.
Do you know how they
Yeah.
met?
They went to high school together.
Yeah.
I don't think that they really, she had mentioned that she wasn't sure who he was, but
Yeah.
he, I guess, had known her through high school. So they went to high school together. So I'm guessing mutual friends kind of introduced them to each other again.
Right. And did you guys ever meet Jason? Like, you
I
weren't
never
invited
met
to the wedding.
Jason.
I'm assuming it sounds like an elopement or well, the engagement, I should say.
It was
Uh,
very, very
it was
fast.
very fast.
Very fast.
Okay. Um, and it wasn't, because I mean, I know my wife and I moved relatively fast, but we were older and it was kind of like, she was like, I'm not giving up my apartment, to like put a ring on. Um, but it was a little different. But I guess what I'm getting at is like there were many times where like she'd be FaceTiming with her friends and she'd be like, I want you to meet my new guy, and I'd be like drawn into these conversations to
Hmm.
have to, be nice and communicate
Right.
and try to seem like a human. Do you remember any moments like that where you kind of met him over the phone or like, hey, say hi, like I can't wait to meet you guys. Like that's usually what happens, right?
Right. That's usually what happens, but no, never. I've never heard him talk ever or FaceTime even on the phone with her. Never.
No.
Can I ask you
As
a
a matter
question?
of fact, after that, we couldn't FaceTime her. I
Right.
tried, and she was like, I can't talk. I can't talk. He's right there. I can't talk. And I had to hang up.
Well, so Sean, ask what you were going to ask because
Yeah,
I'm wondering when that started. But go.
yeah, because I feel like we're going to open a door to a whole other part of the story there. So before we do, I
Yeah.
just wanted to ask you guys, was this kind of a thing in Leanne's character, or were you surprised at this very quick relationship and this sudden turn from her? Or was it like, oh, Leanne, like that's always her. I'm just trying to figure out kind of like what the baseline was.
I was shocked because
I,
in my opinion, knowing her how I knew her, she had a very good head in her shoulders and she didn't make dumb decisions or she kind of thought things through and I never questioned her judgment or anything like that our entire life. So why would I question her now? I mean, yeah, it went through my head, this is very fast and this is kind of weird, but again, I trusted her judgment because I never questioned it before.
That's
So
very
if
interesting. So your assumption was
Mhm.
this must just be real love and this is a good guy because she's always done the right thing.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the warning flags would be there for anybody, but because you know her so well and trust her, you're like, I'm sure, she
right.
sees past that. This obviously looks a little weird, but she's got it. She's got it
Right.
under control.
And you
Right.
don't expect anything like this is ever going to happen to someone you know. You know what I mean? That's not something
Yeah.
that your mind goes to ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was shocked. I thought it was insane. And I mean, but hindsight, I wish I would have. But it's kind of like one of those things like, do you burst your friend's bubble and be like, what are you doing? You're absolutely insane, and talk down to them almost in a sense. But you, like Jesse said, her judgment's always been not awful. Like you trust her. And now I'm like, I wish I would have just potentially ruined the friendship by yelling at her and telling her,
Hmm.
yeah, you're insane right now. But, you know, I can't fix it now. But
And in the moment too, I mean, it's really hard to insert yourself into someone else's love life. Like we've all probably either seen it happen or had it happen where you do try to like, hey, maybe that person's not so great. And it doesn't
Hmm.
usually go well for the friend who's
yeah,
got the advice,
Right.
right? Because the person's like in it and it's hard to see the perspective of the outsider. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying.
So July, it's sometime in July, they get engaged, and I'm assuming they're living together at this point. When do you guys start seeing changes in your friend and all these things that you've started to mention about being able to talk to her on her phone and stuff like that?
it was really pretty quick after. I couldn't text her. I know I was looking back actually today too, because I was trying to add some things up on the timeline that we have with specifics that I had in conversation, and all communication stopped completely on her personal phone in October of 2019. And even in conversation through that, it was days. Like she wouldn't respond to anything. Like, how are you doing? Are you okay? How's the baby? Like, how's Aurora? And even during that time, um, that's when she found out she was pregnant with Colton. Like, she wasn't responding either. Um, and then when it came to having to message her only on her work phone, that's when we would get more of a response from her because he couldn't take it. So that's kind of, we started I started noticing probably in August, September, and then really, really, October is when it really hit, like once she was pregnant. Um, and then, I mean, it just happened so fast, all of it.
Yeah. I don't really remember because I kind of chalked it up to her having, two young kids and a new relationship. And, I had two kids too. So we were just always so busy. And then I did find I was getting a little nervous that it was very quick responses, or it would be an announcement and then nothing after that, even if I would text her or call her, nothing. And I remember her always sending me messages on social media saying, "Oh, I got a new number, use this number, call me on this number from now on." But she never told me it was her work phone or anything like that.
Did that worry you?
Not really, because she didn't say anything to me. And again, everything on social media that she posted was great. And I have her mom on there, and I figured I would know something if something was going on by one of, either one of them. Um, and again, that's not something that you think is going to happen or is happening, especially if they don't mention it to you. And I
Right.
didn't know Kristen at the time.
Mm.
So,
Yeah. So you're truly seeing like what she wants to present, and it's all very much from
mhm,
the outside, and
mhm.
and
Was
that's
was was there ever a moment, within this time period, before the night, when Leanne tragically passed away, where she did reach out to either one of you and sort of like tell you like, this is happening, this, these things are happening within my relationship, and
I
Yeah.
think she told Kristen first. I didn't know until she called me end of June, beginning of July. That's when she called me and kind of just told me everything, and I was floored. I had no idea. I told her, "You can come here. It's the other side of the country, but you're more than welcome to come here if you need to."
now this is just for clarity's sake for the audience, this is the next year, right? This is a year
This is yes, 2021.
year after
So
they got together. So it's a year
yeah,
from when they first got engaged,
yeah,
which was July, and this is a year later. And then
yeah.
she reaches out to you and starts telling you what,
Um,
whatever you're okay talking
Yeah,
about.
no, she tells me, that she had moved out. Her and Jason are over. She's living in a new house with her dad. He's very abusive, very controlling. He takes her phone, keys, told me that he pinned her down, choked her. I mean, just things that you don't ever think that you're going to hear. Trying to break into the house, and he's constantly thinking that she's cheating on him. So he takes all of her stuff, going to her work, um, getting order protection and all this stuff. I think she told Kristen before. She had told me it was kind of the late one. I don't know if it's because she didn't want me to know. Um, I don't know.
I think I knew was because we were doing wedding planning. And so there was a lot of communication back and forth of that with like sending things to her, because everything was like long distance. So, um, addresses couldn't send things because she had moved, and then it's like she had to explain. Um, the first time she had told me was February of 2021 was the first time. And that was the text message where she's like, I was like, well, at least you're getting out before it gets worse. And then she says, or I'm dead. That was the words that ring in your head. Um, but yeah, that was February of 2021. when she got the first order of protection. And then this next day she filed for separation from him. So they were only married a year at that point. She went back to him, and I knew that. But then in April, I'd asked her, how has everything been? And she's like, well, I've left a few times since then, but I'm still here. And now thinking about it, I'm like, what does that mean? Does that mean like I'm still with him or I'm still alive? Now you think about it in a different
Right.
way.
Right.
So, and then in June is when she texts me and she's like, things are really, really bad, very bad. And that's when she sent me the video when he was there trying to get stuff and him trying to, there was nothing there for him to get, but she was moving out. And then the letter that he left her on the ground or whatever. She sent me all that and she was just a mess. And
When she sent you that stuff,
mhm.
did you feel like she was doing it like a friend, like, hey, take a look at this? Or was it, I want you to hold on to this just in case something happens to me?
I think it was a friend thing, but she also knew that I would obviously keep a hold of every single thing. And it was always a sounding board for her, like, and I'm not going to judge her. And I've always told her that, like, I was never one to talk down to her about it. Like, I'm here to listen to you. I'm always going to support you. You're doing the right thing by leaving. You have to do what you got to do. I'm not going to tell her, you failed at anything or I'm just there as a friend and I never ever, she knows I'd never judge her, just like any of her other friends wouldn't either. But I've always been that sounding board. But like I said, at the time, it was a lot of back and forth with, I need to send you this. What's the address? Those things. So I feel like I got a little bit more out of her than some other people might have because of that. There was that constant kind of bugging her and she's like, I have to at least answer her because of the wedding. um and then she was just panicking because she's like, the Becks are slandering me, they're trying to take my Colton from me, they're, I need anything I can, background checks, anything I need to make sure that I'm, okay. And she's like, life, she said, life is much better with Jason not in the picture, is what she told me. And I felt for once through this whole chaos of messages, and sometimes she would send voice messages instead of text messages, which I am thankful for now because I can listen to her talk. Um, which sometimes I felt like maybe so he couldn't read it, or I could save it on my end and disappear at her end or something. Because I would save it to my phone. So if she had deleting anything that was necessary, um, I felt hopeful for that first time that she was actually done, like done. And you know, and it seemed like it because she was moving out, moving her dad. Things seemed great.
It seemed like she was doing everything that somebody in her situation should do. She was doing everything right. She had the order of protection. She moved out. She was with her dad. So, she had a male that living with her to protect her. She had kind of kept everything on a separate computer, documents, I guess, right, Kristen, that
Mhm.
she would need, so that if he did get a hold of any of her electronics, he couldn't get this. So when I had talked to her in July and she had told me about the abuse and all of the stuff he had did to her, I said, okay, you're doing the right thing. Get away, get everything that you need done and be done with him. And she was she was like, I am, you don't have to worry. I've got this. Everything will be okay. I'm, living here. And we're done, completely done. And, then she went on and told me about the kids and, how that was going to be. And like, so everything in my head seemed like she did everything right that you should be doing to get away.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm torn right now because I want to ask you both what the last time you talked to her, but I also want to ask you when you found out what happened. And I feel like either one of those one's going to lead into the other. So, but why don't we do when was unless you differ, Sean, why don't we first, when was the last time that each of you spoke to her?
Yeah, let's start there.
Last time I spoke to her was that call in end of June, beginning of July. My birthday's in July, so she had called about that and then told me everything. That was the last time that I spoke with her.
And did that almost feel like I'm gonna just put everything on the table with Jesse and just
Mhm.
tell you everything that's been happening?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Was
Everything.
was that a very emotional conversation for her?
She sounded more hopeful that she was getting out and everything was over, more than an emotional, I'm gonna cry about it. That really wasn't the type of person she was. So to me, it was more of, I've got everything going. Oh, sorry. Can you please shut the door?
It's okay. Mine's still at school, thank God. He'll be
Oh,
banging,
it's
banging. He'll
it's
be
late
banging on
here.
the door as soon as my wife picks
Oh,
him
yeah.
up. So
So it was more of a hopeful conversation, more of, I'm getting out, everything's gonna be okay, but this is what's been going on. I
got
didn't
it.
think it was really a cry for help or anything like that because she was a strong person, and like Kristen, she didn't take shit from people. So to have her, you wouldn't think this was gonna happen.
But I'm curious because you guys were such good friends, but she had held so much stuff from you almost out of shame, which is typical. And I'm
Right.
saying shame just from my own experience of dealing with cases like this. It's often, people are afraid to tell their friends what's been going on. But it
Right.
seems like from what you're saying, this convo was kind of like, hey, I just want you to know this is what's really been happening, and this is why there's
Hmm.
been all this weird stuff, but I'm
Yeah.
okay, and I'm getting past it.
Exactly. That was exactly how it was. Hmm.
And that was how soon before that night in question?
Well, that conversation was beginning of July, I'd say, and the night it happened was end of August. So month and a half, 2 months.
Pretty close.
Say 2 months, yeah.
And when was the last time that you spoke to Leanne?
Um, the last time I spoke to her was through text message, and that was August 27th. It threw me off because it was, anti-Jason. And he was like, no, we're done. Both of us, were just like, yeah, you're coming, you're gonna have fun, you're gonna be single, we're just gonna have a blast. Um, so excited for me to finally get married because I've been like, I don't ever want to get married, and finally it's happening because finally find the right guy. Um, and then she's like, I have something to tell you. And I'm like, oh gosh, what is it? You're not pregnant, right? And it's like, or you're going to have COVID. Please tell me you don't. And she's like, no. And part of me just thinks I wasn't even talking to her, but she says something that's totally out of character for her, to me at least, was I'm fucking Jason. And I'm like, what? Excuse me? Like, um, okay. And she's like, he really wants to come to the wedding. And I'm like, I'm busy. I've got so much family over. It's chaos. There's people in my pool. There's kids running around, and I'm finishing wedding stuff. And um, I'm like, I don't know. I know I said something that could probably get me in big trouble about him. And I that was it. And so it went from in June and July to no Jason, it's gonna just be me, we're gonna have a blast, to he's coming with and I'm buying his flight right now, and I'm like, well, I guess how do you say no? You know what I mean? At this point, we're at the wire. How do you say no? And that was the last time I talked to her was that conversation. And yeah, it was not the best conversation to be your last.
Well, Kristen, just for clarification, when you had that convo and she told you that she was hooking up with Jason again, that was when?
That was on August 27th.
Got it. Okay. Okay. So let's fast forward a little more for you, Jesse, and a little less for you, Kristen. When did you find out that she had passed?
Um, it was the beginning of September, actually. Want to say it was the 9th of September. I was putting my kids to bed and I had gotten a text message from one of her friends. I can't remember who it was, saying Leanne's mom wants you to give her a call. And I'm like, okay, that's weird, you know. But I didn't think, I'm like, was she in a car accident? Is everything okay? So I text Leanne and I said, hey, are you okay? No response, which again was not unlikely to not get a response back. So I had called her mom and I said, hey, so and so said you wanted me to give you a call. She then told me, you know, what had happened, how she had was with Jason the night before and they went out, she had order protection. Um, and she had passed away with a numerous amount of injuries while with him. And I just obviously lost it. I was not expecting that at all. So her
Um,
mom had to tell me.
yeah, Kristen, when did you find out?
Um, I found out. I see. I was hoping I had my phone so I could find out the exact day because I have it in there. I believe it was. It had to be the next day. After it happened, it had to have been at least the next day. But I found out on Facebook, unfortunately. Only because I wasn't friends with her family or anything like that. Like I didn't know, and I didn't really know anybody other than Nate, her daughter's dad. And I've known Nate a long time, so we were friends on social media. And I just remember sitting in the backyard, relaxing with the bridesmaids, and having a big old drink and getting ready to get in the pool and just scrolling and seeing a picture of her and what Nate wrote. And then I just, I'm, I was told that I collapsed to my knees. I don't remember a lot of it. And I remember saying she's dead. And my friends were like, who, what? And then I just said Leanne. And then I called Nate and I was like, what happened? And he's like, oh my God, nobody told you. And I said, no, I don't know her parents like that. And he's like, I'm so sorry that you had to find out like this. Like I would have told you, I would have thought somebody told you. It was just a blur after that. I called my husband and he just raced home. But that's thankfully I found out like right away, pretty much. She's supposed to be here like shortly after that, but it's like the worst way to find out. I mean, it's
Mhm.
horrible either way, but
I guess you know what, so we know what happened. We know that he didn't get arrested. We know we've all seen the footage of the crime scene. We know the questions that were asked. I guess what's really important to dig into with you guys, now I'm just going back to notes that we have because we're covering this case from so many different angles, and
Mhm.
it's like what was what was the state of their marriage at this moment? Because you guys have mentioned multiple restraining orders.
Mhm.
You've mentioned a separation. But then you've also, obviously Kristen, she called you and said, "Hey, I'm hooking up with him again. Can I bring him to your wedding?" So it seems like there was some, back and forth obviously going on. So at this moment, like what were they legally separated? Were they in the process of getting a divorce? Do you guys even know?
So she had filed for a dissolution of marriage, and there was an active order of protection. So there was an incident in 2019, and in June, the incident in June, actually, her father had and his friend had raced to the house because Leanne had called him because Jason had started taking her things and pinning her down and tackled her in the garage. She ran out of the house. And her dad had pulled up into Jason's mother's driveway, which is right next door to him. She was around for a lot of the domestic violence incidents. But in this particular one in June, her dad had pulled up and kind of pulled the car up and blocked Jason and Leanne from each other. Like the car was in between them, and he got out and kind of intervened. And his mom came out, and she always sticks up for Jason. Jason's a saint, Leanne's always the wrong one, and um, that's what I think prompted. She just had it, and that's what prompted, I think, the call to me. The dissolution of marriage. I'm not sure when that was filed, but that was the last one that Jason had gotten arrested for, not Leanne. And Jason's mom just couldn't understand why her precious baby was getting arrested and not Leanne. And then there was another one where she had run down the street and a stranger had picked her up and he was chasing her in the car. Another one was at Jason's mom's house. Um, and there was witnesses there of him choking her, slamming her on the bed. Um, she has marks around her neck, bruises around her neck, her arms. And that one, I'm not sure the exact date of that one. Kristen might have that.
Um, gosh, that was,
I mean, I can look and see.
I feel like that one was
I mean, she was pregnant when she,
February of
yeah.
21. And
Mhm.
that first one, when, yeah, they recorded her and him. And
Yeah,
they're,
that was at least, yeah, that was at Jason's mom's house.
yeah.
And it showed the bruising around her neck, and they recorded the fight and told the police, no, we didn't. And then it came out, oh yes, we did record it. And it was, how do you do that? How do you see somebody getting a beat like that and you stick up for him and you're still friends with him? And it's just sickening and disgusting how his mom and the friend that was over can let that go on and still be in his side. It's just disgusting to me. Do that to a human being.
Yeah, that's really hard to imagine not having a
Hmm.
problem with that. But people
Hmm.
surprise you, I guess, all the time with
Oh yeah. Yes,
with
they do.
with exactly what they'll do or put up with or look the other way on. It's often very disappointing.
Had she ever told either of you? I know that one of you mentioned the fact that she had said, if I'm alive, if I make it, or at one point, had she expressed explicitly that she was in fear of Jason and that she had fear for her own safety or for her children, anything like that?
Um, yeah, I mean, in a roundabout-ish way. I mean, she's always said like he's crazy, he's psychotic. Um, he strangled me, like he's crazy. But
Hmm.
I mean, she's never said like straight out, I'm in fear for my life, in that kind of way. Besides or I'm dead that one time. Um, but I think she was always super concerned, obviously, with leaving the kids around with his temper. When he drank, he was not nice, and he drinks a lot.
So that was my
Hmm.
next question. Can we talk about the drinking? Because it
Hmm.
sounds like the night that Leanne passed away, they were both drinking together.
Hmm.
And let's talk about that a little bit and what you guys know as far as like how that informed their relationship and also just Jason's behavior in general.
Um,
Ah.
I didn't, like I said, I've never met Jason, but I guess I can make a get an idea by looking at his record of multiple DUIs when it is based on that. Um,
Mhm.
and just from what she had said, that it's bad and that, when he drinks, he gets violent. And that's where the domestic violence cases are all stemmed from, the alcohol. Um, when I was around Leanne, she would drink, but I personally never saw her out of line. Again,
Mhm.
I didn't go drinking and partying with her. We never drank excessively personally when we were neighbors. Um, Maybe a couple glasses of wine. I'm not a super heavy drinker and going out and doing shots and that kind of stuff. And I never did that with her. So I can't really speak on that part.
Yeah. I mean, I obviously my wedding, we were drinking, but she wasn't sloppy. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary. Any time that I saw her drinking, it wasn't, I mean, we were in our early 20s, it wasn't anything crazy at all. We never went, she would come up and visit. We wouldn't go to the bars and stuff. So we'd be at the house or, so it was like dinner, like a couple glasses of wine, or it wasn't, chugging and shots and all that stuff like he tries to say she did all the time. And, she's done drugs. And I've never in my life ever seen her do drugs or I've heard that she's ever done it except from him. Um,
Right.
I've heard that, I mean, this is all hearsay, but it's a pretty reliable source. Her mother would have to, when she would be working, um, from home and Jason's supposed to watch the kids, her mother would have to come over and watch the kids because he was too intoxicated to watch them, she felt. So she'd have to call her mom, or I think sometimes his mom would come over too because he was just too intoxicated and she didn't feel they were safe. They had a pool. Um, so it's what I was told, and I believe there's the source because it's straight from her.
Right.
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 And you mentioned that it's on the record. I mean, he's got a bunch of DUIs, right? And I
Oh,
believe that he's had arrests, since
mhm.
Leanne passed too, for the same
Correct.
thing.
He had DUI with the son in the car, bribery, um, assault, all the same night. So it shows kind of person he is. And he's also just was arrested a couple months ago in the summer. Was on probation. There's a lot.
What's your
Hmm.
understanding, and either of you guys or both of you guys could answer this, but what's your understanding about like what happened with the investigation? Like because it seems like looking at it that
Hmm.
night, the people on the scene certainly think that something weird is going on just from listening to the chatter in the body cams and
Hmm.
all that. So, what's your guys' understanding of what went on and why it didn't go any further?
I mean, I'm sure we both have the same speculation. There is a lot I think that they did wrong. That I think they could have collected a bunch more. We still don't know where her shoes are that night. We were just talking about that today. And the mop bucket that was in the dining room, why wasn't that water tested? Why aren't they asking him more in depth, like her injuries? We
Mhm.
have her on camera, her entire bag at the restaurant or the bar, right before they went home in a spaghetti strap tank top, no injuries on her back, and then from there home she's covered in injuries. Her strap on her shirt's broke. Why wasn't that pushed? Why wasn't that, I guess, interrogated on him to find out why? He said, "Oh, I don't know." And I feel like it's kind of just was left there. Like, "Oh, he doesn't know. Okay."
Wasn't a bunch of Leanne's personal items at the mom's house?
Yes.
Like they
Yeah.
had been taken, from the scene
Correct.
of her
In
death and brought
in
next.
her nightstand drawer, in the mother-in-law's nightstand drawer. Um, like why wasn't that asked more or investigated more? Why is there a ladder in the backyard going into that side of the fence into the mother-in-law's or Jason's mom's house? Why wasn't that question. There's
And
there's a lot of things. Why?
they went out together. They were in these
Mhm.
bars out on the town. I mean, you would assume that she would have had her phone and her credit card on her at that point.
And the key fob, because that's the car that they
Right.
went in, was her car.
It
So
was her car that they were driving.
mhm.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's a spare one. I don't know for
Sure.
sure. I've always wondered about it, but I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe that's an old debit card. Maybe I don't know. But because I know that he would take things of hers and put them somewhere or hide them.
Right, right. You're giving her the benefit of the doubt, but either way, it's odd that her possessions are in her
Oh,
ex,
yeah.
her
Yeah.
soon-to-be ex-mother-in-law's home in her dresser drawer.
Like,
Yeah.
her stuff should be there.
It's
A
odd.
woman that it doesn't seem like she really gets along with that well because she's always getting blamed for everything that goes wrong by this lady. So,
Mhm.
you know,
Right, exactly.
if I have that relationship with my mother-in-law, she better not have my Apple Watch in her dress. You
Mhm.
know what I mean?
Mhm.
It doesn't make any
Right.
sense.
So,
Go ahead, Mom.
no, 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 you go ahead. Go.
I was gonna say, so even just looking through the what they said about that night, Jason and his mother, there's obvious inconsistencies here between the two of them on timelines and who
Mhm.
called who and what happened when. And it seems like for two people who were together during this entire incident, their stories don't really line up, which it really raises some eyebrows, right?
Oh,
Correct.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, Jason has what, four different stories, five different stories. I don't know.
Yeah, it changes a lot, you know. How do you I mean, he had to have seen her injuries. I mean, he put her in the shower. First she got to the shower on her own, then he helped her. So I don't know which one it was, but either way, she was completely naked. So how do you not see those injuries? I mean, they're pretty substantial injuries, and it's not from falling out of the hot tub a couple days ago or whatever he had said.
I wanted to ask you guys, so basically like when all of this stuff comes out, right? When Leanne passes away and the friends are calling one another and kind of learning like what happened, it sounds like there's the anticipation that this was a crime and someone's going to get investigated and probably charged, right? Is that kind of what everybody thought?
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
When did it start to become clear that that wasn't happening?
I I think when I want to say two different parts. I When he took her body to do the private autopsy and lied about being able to do that. He was not allowed to do that. They had to get a court order to get her back. He pretty much stole her body. When he didn't get in trouble for that, I'm kind of like, well, how do you not get in trouble for that? And then I think when we went to California for her memorial and he was still free. Um, Also, the DA had went on and said that she had read a summarized report of the night of what happened and didn't feel like there was substantial evidence to get a conviction. That's, I
Yep,
think, kind of when everything just like, what? Are you kidding me?
but I think that's a very important point. The language that
Hmm.
she used when she
Hmm.
made her statement,
Hmm.
that she didn't say, and I think did she even say, or was it a judge that looked at it? I remember reading that someone actually said it's not presuming innocence. We're just saying that there's not enough to get a conviction, but we're not
Yeah.
presuming innocence here, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
I would like to know what summary she read
Uh-huh.
because it's kind of I feel like it's a situation where you kind of need those details, and I don't think a summary is tells enough. So that's what sits really, really bad with me.
For sure. But I mean, I have seen that there's a case that Sean and I are actually covering right now where it hasn't, there's a lot of evidence pointing towards a certain suspect. And what the word, from, people who know the people inside are basically saying that the prosecutor just keeps sending the cops back. And they're like, go back and get me more because they want to make sure that they can,
Hmm.
because it's become so high profile and there's so many people like us talking about it for years that
Hmm.
they're like, if we don't have it for sure, it's going to look really bad if we bring this to trial, right? And
Right.
it's distasteful and it's weird, but it is their job, and I do understand that sometimes prosecutors they're hesitant to go after something if they don't think that they can get a conviction. And I do think the language that she used is very important because I've never heard anyone say that this man looks like he's innocent. It's
Mhm.
always been, we don't think we're going to be able to get a conviction on this.
What I had read, and I don't know if you guys know this too, but was that a lot of that decision was based on language the medical examiner used, where it was like an accident, but I can't say for sure that it was. It just seems like it could be,
Mhm.
and we don't know. And it's the not knowing in that basically medical examiner's report that's giving them a hard time because they feel like that right there is reasonable doubt, right? And so
Mhm.
how can you ask somebody to convict beyond reasonable doubt if the autopsy report is basically concluding it? Which
Yeah.
is like the most frustrating outcome, obviously, in the world for everyone who looks at this case and cares about Leanne and cares about justice, because
Mhm.
I understand that's what's happening here, but I don't get the sense that's what happens across the country every day in the criminal
Right.
justice system. I think there's plenty of cases where they say, let's do it, like let's go for this.
Yeah.
And I
Um,
feel like they might have less stuff too,
yeah,
than
yeah.
this. And I mean, is there a chance that he didn't do it? Okay, fine. Maybe he didn't do it, but he knows what happened if he
Yes.
didn't cause it. He knows what happened. He was there, whether he caused the injuries or not. He knows. He was the only one there. And like I said, from the time they were at the bar until the time they got home was at minimum a half hour. She got those injuries on the way home. I mean, it's right there in front of your face.
Like, what's the word of what happened that night? Because I know there's plenty of witnesses that were in those bars. There's testimony that I've seen in the reports that he was using abusive language towards her when they were
Hmm.
out. You
Hmm.
know, we know that there were marks on her body that are, documented that they looked like road burn, that like she had either jumped out of the car at some point or been thrown out of the car. Something happened and she ended up back in the
Hmm.
car and brought back to the house. And she's naked. There's blood everywhere. So, what is the story that they're saying that happened? Or is there even a version out there that says that he's not liable for this, but this is what we think happened?
Well, what he's saying is just that she got drunk and threw up. That's what he is telling everybody that are coming back to us and telling us, hey, this is Jason's side of the story. He said she got drunk and threw up. He's
Yeah.
not bringing up any injuries,
At the
nothing.
house that she was, yeah, she was vomiting and he put
Hmm.
her in the
She
shower, right?
stumbled in. Yep. We don't know if he helped her in the shower. But I mean, she was a nurse, and I'm a nurse, but any common sense person knows if you have a huge head injury like that, you're not able to send a text message that perfect to somebody and then be dead minutes later.
Right.
It's impossible.
And the text message that you're speaking of, can you just explain that?
Was to a coworker, saying that she had stomach pains and was going to the hospital. And that was, I think, 12 minutes before the 911 call, something like that.
It was
Um,
pretty close.
Yeah, but then, the EMTs get there and she's cold and,
And there's
you know,
wounds everywhere. It's not,
And
it's
her
obviously not
phone's
just
her
stomach.
phone's in the mother-in-law's house,
hmm.
which
Hmm.
we know because that's documented.
Hmm.
So there's a text message sent from the phone minutes before a 911 call is made from Jason's phone, and then
Hmm.
her phone suddenly walks next door and goes into the dresser.
Well, she had,
That might
they
have
called
been,
her work
Or is
phone.
it different phones that
It's
we
I
two,
think,
yeah. So she had her work phone and then Jason's mom had her personal phone.
copy that? Okay, so it was her work phone that texted the friend.
But her personal phone was so damaged that they couldn't get anything off of it.
Mhm.
So that's fishy too. It's
So,
just,
Well,
there's
it's just
so many
very odd.
things.
It's extremely odd to leave out any mention of the injuries and how those
Mhm.
were incurred. I mean, especially since
Right.
like it's on record. I mean, it says like this is
Mm-hmm.
looks like she jumped out of the car and
Hmm.
that they recognize the type of injuries she had.
Hmm.
Yeah.
How do you, and if, I mean, me personally, Jason, if I'm with somebody and they jump out of a car because they have to use the bathroom or whatever, how do you don't, and then they die, you don't forget that. He didn't say
so
anything. Once he found out that, they found all these wounds and they started questioning him, that's when he was like, oh, she jumped out of the car because she had to
Remember
pee,
now.
but her bladder was full on the autopsy. So it's, how do you forget a big piece of information like that? Or, uh, you know, I helped her in the shower, or she helped herself in the shower. They got home at 12:30. What were you doing from 12:30 until 3? She was in the shower that long because she was wet when they had gotten there.
And somewhere in there, even though she's apparently jumped out of a car and sustained injuries all over her body, she has the presence of mind to text a work friend about stomach pain,
Hmm.
which seems like the least of her problems at that moment in time.
Right.
And
And
like,
then,
yeah,
hmm
so this is one of those scenarios where I think, when you just back out for 1 second and look at the whole story that we're being presented,
hmm
frankly, it's a little ridiculous, right? I mean, like people
hmm
don't just jump out of moving vehicles because they have to pee
right,
usually. If that does
right.
happen or somebody falls out of a car and has that amount of damage to them, you're usually not going to like bring them back and put them in the shower and give them their work phone so they can start texting about the morning. Like that
hmm
doesn't, it's not how this stuff plays
Well,
out.
also, he at one point he had said he was going 5 miles per hour when she had jumped out. My kid rides their bike faster than 5 miles an hour. When you fall off a bike, you're not going to get those type of injuries. So I don't believe that for 1 second. I
Right.
mean, I've literally driven down the street when my child was riding the bike because we live in a neighborhood, and how fast am I going? Oh, you're going 11. So I don't that, and then he doesn't. The next statement, I don't know how fast I was going.
Has her family ever talked about going after this in a civil court and trying to sue for damages or something like that? Because sometimes that
Um,
is an option.
I think they were talking about a wrongful death, but I'm not too sure where that went.
Got it.
Um, I don't really know
Yeah,
how
I
that
mean,
went.
it happened in the O.J. Simpson case, right? He was acquitted in criminal court, and then the family of, well, I think
Hmm.
Ron Goldman won
Yep.
a civil suit that
And it was
Yeah,
huge. It was
found him
huge.
yeah.
It was
culpable.
it was
Yeah,
it was the moment that some sort of justice could actually be done.
Hmm.
yeah. So
Yeah,
it
I'm
does
not too
happen.
sure.
Well, the one thing I think of too is like, this story, it's not impossible. It could be true. And the way we would find out, of course, is a trial, which is why it would be nice if that would happen.
Hmm.
But
Right.
in order for it to be true, this would just have to be the most unlucky scenario for this guy ever, right? This wife that he has a lot of, history with, that everyone in her life has said he's done all these things, and there's police reports, and there's a paper trail of friction between them that's like way beyond what's normal for a couple.
Hmm.
And then this one night, she happens to have this really bad accident, and he handles it in the worst possible way, and she winds up passing away, and all of these suspicious things just happens to happen that way. That's a
Hmm.
real long chain of like
Hmm.
unlikely things to happen one after the other. So that would be like the worst coincidence, or
Right.
that's not the story, right? And
Hmm.
to me, if you're using sort of just like logic and common sense, usually the simpler solution is more likely to be the right one. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's unbelievable that this hasn't been pushed any further.
Right. I
It's
Truly.
agree.
just hard to believe, like, if you're completely innocent, why not mention that to begin with? It
Hmm.
was an accident, right? If she jumped out of the vehicle on her own accord,
Hmm.
it's tragic. This happened. Oh my gosh. I need to call 911 right away. If she's
Hmm.
sweating, I mean, that's not normal.
You saw the injuries in the blood. Like,
Like,
come on.
if you're not guilty of something, why wouldn't you immediately seek help? That doesn't make sense to me. Like, there's a
Also,
missing part there, but like a big missing chunk from what your
hmm
story is to her body to the
hmm
end. And if you're innocent, what where's the missing piece? Where's the missing part of your story that makes it make sense?
And the
Yeah.
children, the children have been split up, right? The
hmm
the, the first child is with their biological father, and the second child is with Jason, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm so sorry, guys. I mean,
Thanks.
it's so heartbreaking. And
Yeah.
these two
Yes.
kids, without their mom, at the end of the day, I just,
That's so
I hate, I
heartbreaking.
have a little boy, and I can't stand when there's ever
Hmm.
kids involved. And
Well, that's
they
another
don't
thing
have and they don't
too.
have
Like,
answers, you know?
right. And they're going to get older and they're going to start asking questions and they're going to see all the stuff that me and Kristen have done and we're going to be there. We're not going to lie to them.
Google search, of their mom's
Yeah.
name. I tell people, I'm like, you lose somebody, like everybody loses someone, and then you lose someone unexpectedly, and it's rough. And then you
Hmm.
lose someone like this unexpectedly, and there's no answers, and you know that there's answers that are there, you're just not getting them. So you have to like fight for them. That's like what
Hmm.
me and Jesse have been doing since as soon as we got the green light to do it.
Hmm.
Um, and you're just so fucking angry. You're angry and you're hurt. You're sad and you want to give up, but then you're like you can't. um,
Hmm.
and we are constantly, we go over all of these documents a lot and we find something new every time. And it's like torture. Sometimes it's like we're torturing ourselves mentally, but it's like you can't stop. Like when you care about someone that much and like you have like a profound loss like that with someone that you love, like you can't give up on them.
She
You
wouldn't
have
give up on on us if it was us. She would be fighting just as hard. So we have to. We have to fight just as hard as she would for us.
especially for the kids,
Hmm.
don't
Hmm.
we want her son to know that his mom was a good person.
Hmm.
She wasn't whatever his grandmother and father would say, about her that he may hear down the road.
Yeah.
Um, she was a wonderful mom and he
I
missed out.
love those kids more than anything.
Yeah. And, we just want justice for her, for the kids and her mom and dad, you know.
Yeah. I talk to her mom a lot. And it's hard. It's very hard. How do you handle losing a child and it's your only child? I mean, it's her dad can't even talk about her. It's so heartbreaking and debilitating for them. How do you try and help them move on, not move on, but deal with the grief and process everything.
Yeah.
It's hard. And I try to answer every single text message and phone call that her mom does. Um, it's just it's hard. It's very
It's so
hard.
heartbreaking. I
Grief
mean,
is hard when you're
Hmm.
getting justice, right? And I
Hmm.
think in a situation like this where you're being denied the person in your life, but also the justice that we expect, I mean, that's just the bleakest
Hmm.
possible outcome. I really feel for them.
well,
And
it's
think,
it's the pebble in the pool, we always deal with this on these cases, especially where it was like a very sympathetic victim, and
Hmm.
there's just so many people that are affected, and the circle, the person's humanity and kindness is in complete alignment with the how big that impact is that they have on the world and how many people are grieving for them, just the ripple effect of that person's death is really, really tragic. And
Huge.
it
Hmm.
goes on for generations, like you said, these
Yeah.
kids are going to live in the shadow of this. It's unavoidable.
Yep.
well, I think you guys are doing an awesome thing by standing up for your friend and being willing to talk about it. And you know, I know it's not easy and not everybody would, but good for you because I think you're right. She probably would have done it for you, both of you, as well as the other people we've spoken to. And at
Hmm.
this point, yeah, I don't know what else there is to do, right? If the
Right.
official avenues that we're supposed to count on aren't working, well, then you kind of have to advocate and be as loud
Right.
about it as you can until something changes and hope that it does.
Mhm.
How would you both like Leanne to be remembered?
I want her to be remembered for who she really was, not who the Becks
Not
are saying she is. She was not an alcoholic. She was not an abusive person. She was not, this crazy, angry individual. She was a mother. That was her main focus, was a mom. That's all she wanted to be. She wanted to be a mom and have a nice, happy family more than anything in the entire world. That's what she wanted more than anything. Um, and, you know, just she was, you felt her presence. I mean, all the people, she is gone, and we're still talking about her, and we're still reaching hundreds of people by talking about her. So that's just the kind of impact she had on my life, Kristen's life, and everybody else who has spoken about her. Um, she just, I mean, it just look, I mean, you can just look at her. She was a beautiful person in and out.
Yeah. I want her to be remembered as the Leanne before Jason,
Mhm. Yeah.
is the free spirit. The one that after she had a baby, she's like, flying to Florida. We're gonna go to the beach, baby. Me and the baby. Single. We're good. We got this. Like just spontaneous Leanne. Um, the happy Leanne with a big smile and just that free soul that again was feisty, but you know, wouldn't take any crap at just super sweetheart.
Mhm.
Um, that's the Leanne that I want people to remember. The happy Leanne before
Mhm.
Jason,
Mhm.
you know, um, who wasn't stressed out about everyday life and making it through the day, pretty much. Um, that's the Leanne I would like everybody to remember, and I think all of the people who knew her would say the same. That that's the Leanne that they miss and that they would want her to be remembered by before Jason.
Well said.
Thank you. Thanks to both of you.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you guys for first of all, thank you for coming on here with us and trusting us with Leanne's story. I want to say that. And then thank you for having the courage to speak out and to
Of course.
keep her name alive.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Appreciate it.
And
Yeah.
also
Mhm.
thank you for being so raw and honest with us because I think that's really, really important.
Have to be. Hmm.
Yeah, there's no sense in dancing around when
Right.
it's
Exactly.
when you've
Right.
gotten to this
Nope.
point. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah, guys, thank you so much. And obviously, let's stay in touch, as we
Hmm.
start to put this thing together, and we'll let you know when we're going to get it up and everything. If we have questions, we'll reach out as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely.
It's very, very frustrating. It's very frustrating. But as I said, I want to give law enforcement the benefit of the doubt, and believe that they actually looked at this. But there are weird anomalies with like the evidence gathering that they were talking about, and stuff like that. And there's just, I mean, it's easy to look at this case as an armchair sleuth and say, what the fuck, I mean, it's just it's really easy to do that.
Yeah, and one thing I've learned from interviewing so many homicide detectives in the past and prosecutors too, but more thinking of the detectives here is that it's pretty easy to keep a story straight if it's true, right? When people start contradicting themselves and the story changes over time, it's usually because they can't remember the invented version, not because they can't remember reality. Sure, little things, can be misremembered. Witnesses misremember things pretty famously, but overall, the gist of a story shouldn't twist and turn like, like an eel in a fish tank every time you ask somebody to retell it. And if two people, especially, just were doing something, 3 hours ago and you go ask them about it, you should probably get a pretty, pretty lined up story from those two people. If you don't, that just means maybe you should dig a little harder, or maybe there's a way you can find out what really happened, because stories that don't add up mean one of them's not true. So that's kind of my thinking, looking through the files and everything that we have available to us. It's odd. It's odd that they would just leave it there, right? With all these inconsistencies and all these things that don't match each other when they normally should match. To me, it's just unusual that that's like, all right, I'm sure it's fine. That's not normally what they do. But,
Right.
this is a special case, I guess.
Very special case. For whatever reason, we just don't know the whole truth. Be great to try and talk to one of the cops. I wonder if there's an investigator that was involved in this that would be willing to speak to us. We
Yeah,
should look into that.
yeah. We have spoken to some of them, and it's been a no across the board, not
Right.
because they don't want to talk, but an administrative sort of categorical, we're not allowed to talk about this
I
case.
forgot that. That's right. We already did sort of
Yeah, so
direct it to
I
the
got the
investigator.
sense, sort of reading
Yeah.
the tea there, that this was a person who actually did want to talk, but the rules are no right now, and that
Right.
was kind of the long and the short of it. Just to,
Right.
you know, that was
Yeah,
my read.
that's a bummer.
Well, that's how this whole case feels, right? It's like it's just right there, but
It's a giant bummer. The the words of the prosecutor, the DA, because she probably wouldn't have tried the case herself, but really stand out to me. When they made the statement about not taking this, not going after him.
right where they said this is not a presumption of innocence.
Yeah,
This is a lack of evidence to
yeah.
convict. Paraphrasing,
Which
of
is, like I said, that's why I'm giving law enforcement the benefit of the doubt because that was such an honest statement, you know. And that
yeah,
could
it's
be part of
sad.
what's going on here.
So many times in cases like these where there's someone is deceased and there is a trial and there's a tumultuous relationship, like that victim gets their name dragged through the mud. I mean, they go after everything. And that would probably happen here, honestly, because I think you're right. I think there's enough history there and enough just ugliness between these two that's on paper and on the record. And it's not
Mhm.
just rumor, like there's police reports, right? That it would be a pretty rough experience for everybody to have to sit through. But,
And
you
even
know,
if you just look at Leanne objectively, you know, she was with a guy, she got pregnant with him. They broke up while she was pregnant. She had the child. She got into another relationship right away, got engaged. Like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but it could be weaponized.
well, a clever
In
defense attorney could certainly, yeah, could certainly make
a great
case
defense
that.
attorney who's good at storytelling and character assassination, which is part of their
I was
job.
going to say it's going to become a thing of character, right? It's like his character versus her character, and she's not there to defend herself. And who is there is a prosecutor who never met her, right?
Right.
Versus this other person. So,
Yeah. And you can
yeah.
bring all these friends on and have them as witnesses and, very sympathetic and professional, successful women who would stand up for her. But yeah, obviously the formula that they ran told them that they probably wouldn't get a conviction.
I mean, I hate to go back to the Chance Engelberg case, but it's like, it's a lot like the accidental death verdict there, where it's like, okay, maybe that's totally true, but both there and here, it just seems like there's so many inconsistencies and unanswered questions that like a lot of people aren't willing to make that jump to that conclusion yet. Even if the authorities have, like when I was in, you guys probably all had this experience when you're in like elementary school and you're learning math, they want you to show your work, right? And your homework, like show us how you solved the math problem. Otherwise, we're just going to think you used a calculator. But if you guys can't show your work for why you reached this conclusion, why should we believe it? You're just telling us, that's what it is. Don't worry about how we got there. But, in these cases where there's massive interest of people aren't understanding the circumstances, show your work and we're good. Seriously, like, how did you get there? Oh, that's how. Got it. Otherwise, how do we know? And this case just kind of reminds me a little bit of that. It feels like the
Right.
the questions aren't answered yet.
Right. Yeah, agreed. Agreed.
Well,
Well, guys, yeah, I mean, let us know what you think. Obviously, we're doing a lot of coverage on this case, so there's multiple videos where we're asking the same question, but did hearing from these two women change your mind on anything? Did they convince you even more so of what you already thought? What do you think happened here? What do you think happened to Leanne, and what do you think should happen moving forward? Drop us a comment. Let us know your thoughts. Thanks, everybody.